Hey everyone, welcome to the Your Enneagram Friend podcast, where I have engaging and thought provoking conversations with my friends about the Enneagram. I'm Wendy Busby, your very own life and relationship coach, here to inspire you to know yourself better. Thank you for listening. Today on the show, I have my good friend Eric Scherrer to talk with us about what it's like being an Enneagram Type 3. Hey, Eric.
Hey, Wendy. Good to see you.
It's so good to see you too. I
Thank you.
really appreciate you being here and being willing to share with us about all things Type 3.
Oh, absolutely. Any conversation with you, Wendy, is great. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, thanks, Eric. So I like to start by asking my guests to share a little bit about their background, maybe where you're from, a little about your family, what you do, really anything that you feel comfortable sharing that gives people an insight into who is Eric.
All right. Well, let's see. I am married, been married it'll be 20 years here in December to my wife, Kelly. We have two boys. We have a 14-year-old and a 3-year-old. So we're
Wow.
on both
I mean,
ends
I
of
know
the
that, but
spectrum. Both ends of the spectrum.
yeah.
So working on the teen side of the house, then working on potty training on the other side of the house. So it's kind of fun. It keeps us young, and we've been a military family. We've been in the Marine Corps it's been over 20 years now, and so we've moved all over the place. There's really not a spot here in the U.S. That doesn't have a Marine Corps base that we haven't lived at. So we've been all over the place.
Do you have a favorite place that you have lived?
Ironically, our favorite place is Yuma, Arizona.
Yay!
we love Yuma. We love Yuma. That was just really where our best community was. And I think as far as just outdoor adventures, which our family loves to do, Yuma had that in abundance. So we loved it. We loved it there.
Yeah. Well, thanks for giving us a little insight into who you are. And so let's jump into the Enneagram.
Okay.
When did you first learn about the Enneagram?
It was, I first learned about it probably around the 2013, 2014 timeframe. Ian Crone, his first book that he released, I remember reading that. And I think that was a 2013 timeframe, maybe 2014. We were on a vacation to the beach and was sitting there reading it. And I thought, wow, this is so informative and so fascinating. So that's when I first heard about the Enneagram and learned about it.
Yeah, that's similar to me. I first learned about it through Ian Cron as well, reading the Road Back to You.
Yep, The Road Back to You.
Which is an excellent book for people to read if they're interested in the subject. It's a great primer book. It's an easy read. He's quite entertaining.
Yeah.
in the way he writes, and
yeah.
So I like introducing people to that book. So I did mention that you're a Type 3. How did you come to know that you're a Type 3?
Well, it's a great question, and it's a funny story. When I first read Ian's book, The Road Back to You, I thought, this really makes a lot of sense. And I think that chapter on the 3, that really makes sense. I think that's who I am. And I'll never forget driving to work. We were in Quantico, Virginia at the time, and I'm driving to work and I'm listening to Ian's podcast, and he's interviewing a lady as a Type 1. So she's doing the same kind of podcast that you and I are doing. And she was on as a Type 1. And Ian's just asking her to describe how she views the world and how she would handle different situations. And as she's saying this, she's going through her interview, I was thinking to myself, boy, maybe I really mistyped myself. Because I'm resonating with everything that she's saying. I mean, she could be talking about me. And so I was really beginning to wonder, maybe I'm a 1. Mm-hmm. I must be a 1. And then about halfway through the podcast, Ian just stops and he said, I've never done this on a podcast before, and I'm just going to do it. I'm not sure how to say this, but you're not a 1.
Yeah. I think I remember listening to that episode, actually.
You're a 3. And I just died laughing in the car. I was like, well, okay, there we go. I guess that solidifies it. So for me, that's really what solidified my type was, okay, there we go. That's it.
Yeah. And can you share with us what your subtype is?
So I am a sexual subtype for 3.
You are?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait a minute.
Self-preservation.
Self-preservation. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. No, that's
Um,
okay. That's okay. I was like, wow, something happened since the last
no,
time we talked. Okay.
no. And I'm sorry, Wendy. Yeah,
No,
that's right.
that's okay.
Self-pres. That's what it is.
Yes, which there's a lot of commonalities between self-preservation threes and self-preservation ones.
Yeah, that
So
makes
that
sense.
it makes a lot of sense that she thought that she was a one, and that you were, as you were listening to that, you're like, oh, maybe I'm a type one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for you, just because I know you, the repressed instinct for you is the sexual instinct.
Yeah. That's what it
I think
was.
that's
Yeah.
what, because
Yep.
I know you've been working on that. Like that's
Hmm.
something that has been part of your own inner work. And so
That's right.
I
That's
could
right.
see where that would be the first thing that came to your mind.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. You're
Yeah.
right.
All
You're right.
right. So when you've started incorporating everything that you were learning about the Enneagram into your personal growth work, where did you start? Like what worked and what didn't work initially?
Well, I'd say the biggest area for me where the Enneagram has made the most, I think it's where it's been most revealing to me, especially as a three, is my tendency to, well, there's a couple of things. One would be my tendency to perform. And in that tendency to perform, to shapeshift, to not really be true to who I am, to not really know who I am. And
Mhm.
because of that tendency and that desire to perform, to look good, to shapeshift, I would put relationships on the back burner in
Mm.
order to accomplish tasks or in order to achieve. And that includes my own family, to where it is hard for me to really focus on relationships, because if you give Eric a choice, is Eric going to work on something, and that is for outward accomplishment,
Mhm.
or is Eric going to work on something, that being a relationship with my sons or my wife? The easy box is for me to work on that outward achievement.
Mhm.
And what the work that I have been doing, particularly with you, Wendy, and then taking this on my own, is focusing on, they're both work,
Mhm.
but answering the question in my mind, what do I really want to achieve? And I value relationships. I value intentionality in my relationships. And so I recognize that that is also work. And so I am putting the effort into being available, being present in those very intimate, close relationships that I want to have intimacy in, because
Mhm.
it takes work. It takes work.
It does, and that was really beautifully said. I think it's important for people to understand, especially if they're newly identified as a type 3 or discovered that they are a type 3, that you make such a good point of work, because there's all this external praise that comes, right? You have a goal, before you reach the goal, you get praised for that, or you win an award, or you get a promotion, or you get a bonus. Like there's some sort of immediacy to the reward, and that feels really good. Feels really good to the type 3. And when you're looking at working on relationships, those rewards, they're not quite so immediate, they're not quite so tangible. They take much longer to see.
That's right. That's right. And I think that a three and maybe a two can begin to fit this mold a little bit as well, especially if they have if they're a two wing three. But the idea, the picture I have in my mind is that of this golden retriever, or a lab, where I'm just wagging my tail and I'm doing anything for a pat on the head, and a good boy, because that means so much to me.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't always get that from my 3-year-old. I
Right.
definitely don't get that from my 14-year-old. And
Mhm.
so I get appreciation and I get return of my affection, obviously, with my wife, with Kelly, but it's not on a public stage. That's just between she and I. And
Mhm.
so it's harder. It's very
Mhm.
hard.
Yes, because there is a desire for recognition.
There is. Yeah.
But you being a self-preservation 3, it looks a little bit different. So just for the sake of the people who are listening, I wanna give a little explanation about what a self-preservation 3 looks like is that they want to be good, not just look good, and that's what I hear you describing there. It's like, I want to be good,
Yeah.
and I want to look good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
self-preservation 3s are some of the most extreme workaholics.
Yeah.
And the self-preservation survival strategy, it fuels anxiety about material
Yeah.
security.
Yeah.
And that pushes you to work even harder.
That's right.
And there's this like, I want to look good. I want to present a good image, but I want to be good. Like, I think that that's so important for people to understand. And so there's this idea inside of that promoting myself, promoting self promotion is bad. So a self-preservation 3 won't um, overly self-promote. They might even not drive a very nice car or look very good on the outside because they're trying to minimize their desire to look good. And so they're a little bit more modest, not as competitive as the other 3s. Does that
That's,
resonate
ex-
with you?
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I think sometimes it's easier for that self-preservation 3 to take a little bit of pride in their modesty, which is
Mm.
funny to say. But what's more important to me as a self-pres 3 is I want to drive nice vehicles, but I don't need to drive the BMW. I want to drive, when I say a nice vehicle, I mean something that has great gas mileage, that's comfortable, that is safe. That
Practical.
practical. That's
Practical.
very important to me. It's
Mhm,
not the flash, it's the practicality that's very important to me.
mhm,
And I think that one of the greatest struggles that comes with the self-pres 3 is anxiety is one of the big
mhm,
side effects, because you want, not only do you want to be good and you want to be perceived as good and doing everything right and doing it well, but you also want to be successful on top of that. So you got to be perceived as doing everything right and being successful. And so you're craving that outside, um, that outside attaboy, that outside pat on the head, the acknowledgement that you are good and that you're doing good work. And you crave it on a daily and almost hourly basis. It's
mm,
always there. And then when you add the self-pres on top of that, if you've got to write a big check for something, you probably have your, as a self-pres 3, you're probably doing pretty well with savings. You're probably taking care of yourself. You probably have, you might be, you might be a little bit on the prepper side occasionally, who knows, but you've got the things, you're ready to go.
mhm,
But to take something out of that, you're always doing calculations in your head. Okay, if I take this, then I've got to fill in here, or how am I going to make this up? How do I get back to that point? And you
mm,
have this point in your mind of what safety might look like, or what assuredness looks like. But then when you get there, it's never quite good enough. And you're
mhm,
always having to strive for something else.
mhm,
And that's where the anxiety comes in, because you're never good enough. You never do something well enough. You never have enough. And you're never getting the amount of praise. The amount of praise that you're craving is never enough.
So what I hear you saying is that anxiety permeates like every area of
It
your life,
does. Yeah.
your work life, your home life, your financial life,
Yes.
all of it.
Yes.
So what do you do with anxiety? What has helped you with that?
Well, a number of things. I think that counseling has helped,
Mhm,
coaching has helped. So, working with an Enneagram coach, and I've worked with you, Wendy, you've helped me a lot with that. So, I
mhm,
think the combination of counseling and coaching has been had a profound effect on my life. The other thing is sharing your anxiety with others and
mhm,
opening up, because again, as a self-pres 3, you want to put off this image that you got it all together, that you
mhm,
got it, everything's good. But to share, especially with your spouse or with a close friend, somebody who's within your inner circle, that all is not well with the world and you're really concerned about something, the simple act of doing that is huge. And I think also for the self-preservation 3, movement, getting out and moving. For me, I love to run. I'm a runner. And so I need that daily activity in my life just to help clear my mind, clear my heart. Because the other issue you have with the 3 is your emotions end up getting blocked. And I struggle with, I don't know how to show my emotion. I don't know. To me, being angry is a bad thing. To show anger is bad.
Yeah.
To show an extreme in any way is bad.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you brought up emotions, because one of the key traits of type 3 is to avoid emotions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so can you say a little bit about like what motivates you? Because I know you have done work in this area of expanding your emotional language, expanding your emotional experience. What drives the 3 to avoid emotions, to push them away? Because they are the center of the heart triad. When we look at the symbol, there's the 2, 3, 4 that makes up the heart center, and 3 sits right in the middle of it. And they have the capacity for the most emotions, even more than a 4, which is usually surprising.
I know, Wendy, and it surprises me to hear you say that. And I know you keep telling me that my emotions are my superpower. I believe you, but I'm taking that on faith because I still haven't seen that. And I think the reason that emotions are so hard for me is, again, when you are trying to put out an image that you've got it and that you're good, to show anger or to let yourself become angry at something, or to show fear, or to show sadness, it becomes very scary. Because what if people see you angry? What if people see you sad and fearful?
And that doesn't fit the image of being good.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So how have I dealt with that? I'm not yet at the point where I can let people see that I'm mad.
Okay.
But what I'm working on is I can tell, like, for example, I was very concerned about something yesterday, and it kicked up some anxiety for me. And so I was able to tell my wife, I was able to tell Kelly, I said, hey, I am really feeling anxious this evening. And the cool thing is she knows me well enough to say, what are you anxious about? And I'd tell her, well, I'm anxious about this and this and this and this. And then we're able to discuss it. And I felt so much better after telling her that. And so what I've learned is that if I will just tell my son, I am really angry right now about what you did. I may not show it, but I'm going to tell him. I'm telling Kelly, I am really anxious about this right now. I don't know how to feel this out. I don't know why. I just am. I don't know how to express it.
Naming it seems to be maybe the first step of like just simply, simply naming the emotion that is coming to the surface.
That's right.
Instead of numbing it out and pushing it down.
That's right. And Wendy, you gave me a great tool early on in our coaching relationship where you gave me a wheel, and there's an emotion wheel. And it started with some of the big ones, okay? Anxiety, for example, or maybe it was fear, or whatever it happened to be. And it drives down to the core of, that's what I feel.
Yes.
That's helped me a lot.
Yeah. The feeling wheel is an excellent tool. I mean, I think it's an excellent tool for everyone, but especially for the types that have a little bit harder time identifying emotion, because emotion they're there for a reason, right? We have emotions as human beings for a reason. They're there to inform us of something. And so let's use all the resources that we have in us, right?
Yeah.
And what I wanted to ask you about this too, stay on the subject for a minute, because I have heard it described by other 3s as pushing emotions down because it gets in the way of reaching the goal. It gets in the way of, like, if I let emotions come up, I might simply collapse and I won't be able to work anymore, because working feeds personality, it feeds ego, it feeds the attaboys, the attagirls that are needed to keep pushing forward. And if I feel something about that, then I might utterly collapse.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I don't experience that so much.
Okay.
For me, I perhaps the best way to probably describe that in my life would just be you end up taking on somewhat of a stoic view, and that's how people would describe you. They would describe you as you are very stoic, and one of the things I've had more and more people say to me is I appreciate your calmness. And all they're seeing is my lack of emotion. That's all they're seeing. And maybe they appreciate that. Maybe that is a little bit of a gift in that regard, but it's not necessarily done consciously on my part. Now, here's where what I will say though, those emotions for me, because they can become so powerful, whether it's anger, and I've noticed in two areas, anger and anxiety. Those can be, I am unable to work when I either get very angry or get very anxious. I have to do something physically with my body or talk it out with somebody because that is a huge block. They are so powerful.
Interesting.
That I can't work through it.
That's really interesting. So how are you when other people are very emotional?
I'm very calm.
Okay.
Very calm. I do not, I tend to not pick up on their emotions and shapeshift into that emotion. I remain fairly detached actually from them. And I just kind of maintain this sort of neutral space, if you will.
And what if it goes on too long?
Then I will tell them it's probably time to move on.
Okay.
I start to problem solve for them.
Yeah. It's like, okay, let's get back to doing something, right?
About it. Let's do something about it.
Something about it. Let's do
That's
something
That's right.
about it. Yeah. I've given you some time to express what you need to express. Now move on.
Yes. Thank you for your expressions. I appreciate your feelings. Now it's going to move on.
Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So another key trait that's big for type 3 is setting goals and doing whatever it takes to accomplish goals.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that when people recognize that they're type 3 is one of the first things that they identify with is the fact that they're very goal oriented and they're very driven to accomplish their goals and often will do whatever it takes to get to the thing that they've set out for them to do. So what is that like for you, or what has that been like for you in the past, maybe even before you had done some of this Enneagram work?
Well, I can remember very clearly as early as high school, I had a list of things to do. I've been a box checker since I was a teenager, and I have always had goals or something that I am working towards. So that's been a very big part of my life. And it does drive what I do, especially as I've gotten older and I begin working towards, okay, I've got a goal of this, or I want to accomplish this, or I want to achieve this. Getting to attaining that goal has become an art to where, I will break it down into what am I going to do today? What are the steps it's going to take to get to that goal? And I will literally have daily, I call it the big three that I stole from Full Focus. And Michael Hyatt teaches that concept of what are your big three in order to hit your quarterly and your annual goals. And I pursue that wholeheartedly. It's a system that I love, that works very well for me and is a big part of my life. The challenge for me is making goals that align with my values, because I will make a goal out of a project. I can get those two things confused.
Okay.
And I think we need to be careful. There's a difference between projects and there's a difference between goals. And what I've learned as I've gotten older, and perhaps a little bit healthier here, is that I need to first determine what are my values? What do I value? What's my purpose and what's my mission? And then set goals that align with those three things. Once I do that, then I'm on the right vector.
Okay. I'm glad that you said that. an interesting distinction between the two that maybe a lot of people don't even really recognize, even in
Yeah.
themselves, even if they're not a type 3, right? But maybe there are other types that
Yeah.
are
Yes.
more proactive with their goals.
Yes.
And it can, what I hear you saying is that it's a little bit like if you're just setting goals and reaching goals for the sake of doing that, like it's a little bit like a spinning wheel.
That's
Like,
right.
what are you
That's right.
actually really accomplishing? You might be
That's right.
making small accomplishments, but in the bigger picture,
That's right.
what is it that you actually really want?
That's right. Michael Hyatt says that every goal is a
Mhm.
project, but not every project is a goal.
Mm,
And that's been very powerful. That's been very
yeah,
helpful to me.
yeah. So, what is failure like for you? What happens when failure comes into the picture?
Well, devastation. Um, I think that a number of different things. So, first off, if you failed, was it really your fault? Why did you fail? I mean, did the rules change? I wasn't supposed to fail at this. You
Mm,
begin to question, and maybe you'll tweak things just enough that it makes you look a little bit like a victim, or I could have
mhm,
the odds were stacked against me. I was the underdog in this. I probably couldn't achieve it anyway.
mhm.
Or some outside entity or power was working against you. Failure is a big thing for a 3, and you'll begin to make excuses in your mind of why you failed. You have a hard time accepting the fact that you actually failed at something. And as a 3, there's probably very few things you have failed at.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Because failure is such a big deal, you equate failure with, well, I'm not good, or I'm not good enough. And obviously, somebody else didn't see my value. You'll do anything to avoid that.
Okay.
And
Do
so,
you change the goal?
yeah,
Like, if you have set a goal and you're on the path to reach that goal, but you're sensing failure, will you change the goal so that you
yes,
can actually accomplish it, to put it in the like, "Oh, I accomplished that?"
yeah, you might very well do that. And it's not, sometimes it has to do with goals where it works more for me. If I don't hit a goal, I'm okay with that. When I say failure, I'm talking like you really blew something, or you failed at attaining, whether it's status, whether it's a position.
Mhm.
You failed reaching that point.
I see.
That's what's much more critical, because I think for a 3, when it comes to goal setting, if we recognize we're not going to hit that goal, you're right, Wendy, we just change the goal. We just change the bar. We change
Mhm.
how we measure it, or maybe we give it more time to get there.
Okay. So
Failure,
with
yeah,
failure, there's more reframing. It's more
absolutely,
reframing so that you can turn what might be perceived into a failure into a success. Like, the failure is a success. Like,
yeah.
there's some contributing factor that was not aligned, and therefore,
It could be all over the place. It could be on one hand where it's like, oh, that just wasn't God's will. He's protecting me from doing that.
okay,
To the other end of the spectrum of, boy, they blew it. I can't believe they would do what they did and not pick me, or something along those lines, or didn't see
okay.
the value.
Mhm,
It puts you more of the underdog, or you really didn't have much to do with it.
mhm.
It's an odd place to be.
Yeah, that's quite interesting the way you describe that. I've learned something new today about type threes. Thank you. And so, kind of on this same theme that we're on about appearing successful, right? This drive to appear successful. And you did allude to shape shifting. So can you tell us a little bit more about what is shape shifting? How does that happen? I've heard from other threes that it just sort of happens automatically. It's not really even something you think about. It just happens. But if you can articulate, what is the driving force behind shape shifting for type 3?
Well, I would say for a type 3, it's very much unconscious. The first thing you're going to notice when you walk into a room is what's acceptable. You immediately pick up on what are the norms and what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and who are the power figures in that room. And then once you figure that out, and you do it almost instantaneously, I would say it's less than 2 to 3 minutes. You've got that wired. It's probably more like 1 minute. You know who those individuals are. You understand the culture. You got it. And then what you're going to do is you're going to mirror them. You are going to you're going to talk like they talk. You're going to look like they look. You're going to say the things you know that they're going to want to hear.
Okay.
And so what's dangerous about that is you are not being true to who you are. You lose sense of who you are. You lose sense of what your values are in that organization and in that situation. And so it can be a very dangerous place to be.
Mm-hmm. So how does a 3 get to the place that they know more who they authentically are?
I think 3s have to do a lot of work on what they value.
Okay.
And the way that I personally have done that is I do that with, okay, who does God say that I am? I start there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think about all the people in my life that I respect or I look up to, and I distill that down into values. And I say, okay, there are these traits that I really admire about these other people. And the reason I admire them in other people is because that's what I value. It's something that I want as part of my life. And then I write those values out and I make them action statements.
Okay.
So that these are my values. They are actual thing. They're actionable steps that I can take that I value. And I read it every single day. And so that it becomes ingrained into my mind and into my heart. And so that helps me when I'm in a situation, in a room, in a conversation, in a meeting, and maybe I'm being asked to do something, or what are your thoughts on this?
Mm-hmm.
It just helps take a little bit of the edge off to remember, this is what I value. Because this is what I value, this is what I'm going to say. So it's taken a lot of very deliberate work on my part.
And the tendency before you had that tool would have been what?
Whatever it took to make myself look good,
Okay.
be acceptable in the eyes of whoever the powerful person in the room was.
So you being in the military, I can imagine that has been really a challenge for you.
It has, because not only are they're the powerful person, but they're also, there's rank, there's positional authority, there's all the above. Yeah.
Yeah. So as you are in the later stages of your career, whatever might be next for you, how are you using this values tool that has worked so well for you to help you get into more touch with who you are and what you want in life and what is next for you in terms of like what you're going to do with your life, whether that's that you continue with where you're at right now or you go a different direction? Like, how are you using that to help you in this kind of later stage in your career?
Well, what it's allowing me to do, Wendy, this understanding what my values are, what my purpose is as a husband, a father, and a friend, as a Marine, and then what my mission is. And my mission is very simple. My mission is to be be physically and emotionally present with my wife and children, a guide to those that are within my circle, and the creator of effective and efficient work. That's my mission.
That's really beautiful. That's different from the last one you shared with me.
It is. And I think that mission.
I love that so much.
Thanks, Wendy. Thank you. Our missions change when we're in different stages of our life. Our missions change. And that's what that mission is for me right now. And so what I do is that comes straight from my values. That comes straight from my purpose. And what I do is when it comes to making decisions, whether it's career decisions or workday decisions, I simply filter it through is this part of my mission or not? If it's not, we're done. I'm not doing it. If it is part of my mission, if it falls in that mission statement, then yeah, I'll do it. So in short, what it's helped me do, Wendy, is it's allowed me to let my yes be yes and my no be no.
Without being so concerned with what others will think of your yes and your no.
Yeah. And has all that gone away? Do I not? No. Like there's still some struggle there. It's like, it's hard to say no to this, but what are they going to think of me? But at the same time, I've done all this hard work, and that's what I lean back on is I put a lot of thought into this. And it wasn't just, I didn't just come up with it out of the blue. And so this has taken years of growth, work, coaching, and counseling. That has to count for something. And so I can stand on that.
It does. I promise you that it does. So what is the concept of slowing down like for you? Because working really hard, being very active and all that is really typical for threes. And one of the pieces of work for threes is to slow down, is to kind of get in touch with themselves like you're describing. So how do you slow down? What is it like for you to slow down?
Slowing down is very hard for me, just like you said. And I'm reading a beautiful book right now. I'm blanking on the name of the author, but it's called Sacred Rest. And it is a great book. I'd recommend any three out there to read it, or really anybody.
Okay.
It is a great, great book. And it's helped me reframe what rest is. And so a daily practice, Wendy, and it's something I have to put it on my list of things to do is, hey, once an hour, I'm going to walk out of my office and I'm going to do some breath work. I'm going to practice. I'm going to relax my shoulders. I'm just going to do a body sensory check. Where am I holding stress in my body? Where am I tense? And I'm going to release that tension. That's a piece of rest for me.
Okay.
And I allow myself to just lean into that, to rest. I've changed my habits in the morning, or the evening before I go to bed. The morning's probably my best example. It's a 3. I want to get up, and I used to think, hey, I got to do all these things. Got to have my quiet time, my prayer time, my reading time, do all these things. Now, as a practice, I just get up. I put a morning meditation on, and I spend 5 minutes doing that. Nothing else, just quiet.
That's a long time.
It is
for you, like, because there's this. I think I've even told you this before. Another self-preservation friend of mine, she described it as like when she wakes up, her eyes pop open in the morning. That it's like there's an energy pushing on her back, like get up, get up, like impossible to like just stay in bed and consider what the day might bring.
Right.
It's an immediate get up out of bed and start.
That's right.
Working.
That's right.
So for you to like take 5 minutes, like I don't want to pass over how incredible that is. And it might sound to other people like 5 minutes. What's the big deal about 5 minutes?
Like, what's your problem, man?
Being still for 5 minutes is incredibly hard.
It is. It is very hard. And I think the last example that I can give is with my 3-year-old. He'll come up to me and he'll just say, want to play? And for me, playing with my 3-year-old is one of the hardest things I can possibly do. And there are people who are listening who would say, how could you be such a terrible father? And I'd say, well, try being a self-preservation 3.
Yes. I was just gonna say more about that, because it's okay. People need to hear the truth, right?
Yeah. It is very hard to sit down with my 3-year-old and play Legos with him or play a game with him that is doing nothing, Wendy. I'm not accomplishing anything. The house is a mess. I'm behind on this. I've got emails and texts that I still have to answer, all these things that just need to get done. And I have to pause. I have to stop. And I have to just, okay, I
Right.
need to spend time with my son. And I might just give myself, again, that 5 minutes, but it's
Mhm.
connecting with him. And what's helped me is because of that's something I value is daily connecting physically and emotionally with my sons. That's a great way to emotionally and physically connect with him.
Mhm.
And I can check that box.
Yes. Yes, I was just gonna say, like, there is even an accomplishment in that, right?
There
Because
is.
it's it's meeting it's meeting one of the needs of your values, right? Of like, I want to be present emotionally and physically with my family. And to do that, I have to sit down on the floor with my 3-year-old and play Legos and just to pay attention. First, to acknowledge this is hard. And it's okay to acknowledge it's hard for me to do this. Maybe I feel distracted, but I'm going to choose in this moment to stay present and be here and quiet all the chatter, all the lists I have going on in my head, and just be there.
That's right. And also, for the threes out there who are focused on achievement, if you put that on your to-do list and you say, all right, 5 minutes with a 3-year-old, 45 minutes with a 14-year-old, and you do it and you check that box, you've accomplished something. It's huge. It's powerful.
Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go, right? Hey, if that's what it takes, do it.
Yep. Yep.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So everyone who's judging right now can shut up. Right?
That's okay. They can judge. They can judge.
Okay. That's okay. So well, first of all, like, this has just been a fantastic conversation, Eric. I appreciate your candor and, you know, again, your willingness to be here. Is there anything else that you think would be really important for others to know about type 3? Um, Anything else you want to add?
You know, depending on the type 3, the only thing that I would say is, especially if you're really close friends with one or you're married to one and you wonder why are they doing the things they do, just having the conversation with them. And this goes both ways, obviously, but one of the most powerful things that you can do in a relationship is try to understand why the person does the things that they do. And if we can do that more in our relationships, the Enneagram is a powerful tool
Truly is.
to just understand what drives the other person and why do they think and act the way that they do. And my encouragement to everybody is to lean into that and understand how yourself, what drives you, and then just as importantly, what drives the other significant person in your life, and
Mhm.
how can you help them grow? How can you support them in their journey? And then by doing so, they're going to support you in yours.
Mhm. So, what is a good question for others to ask type 3 to kind of get them into that conversation?
I One of the things that's powerful for me is a very simple, very calm. What are you scared of today?
Mm,
Or what would happen if you don't accomplish that?
mm, okay.
And how can I
They're good
help you?
questions.
Yeah.
And how can I help you with that?
Yeah. How can
Yeah.
I support you in that?
How can I support you? How can
Yeah.
I help you? How can I support you? That's a really good questions. And I would imagine that you would have to already have built trust with the 3 to even ask those questions.
Yes. Yes. That can't just be somebody off the street
Mm-mm.
doing that. It has to be
Right.
somebody who's within the inner circle, the circle of trust.
Mhm. Yes. So for those that are listening, if you have an important person in your life who is a type 3, remember these questions because they can be quite powerful into giving insight and and open up a deeper conversation.
Mhm.
And that builds intimacy, that builds even deeper trust. And I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Eric, thank you so much for sharing and for all of your insight into what it's like being a type 3. And I hope that I can have you on again sometime and relay, because I've already told Kelly this. I'd like to have the two of you on together as a couple.
Oh no, that would be fun.
Yeah.
That would be fun because, going back to the relationship thing, the Enneagram has helped both of us so much understand the why behind just the way we do things, the way we do life as individuals, and then as a couple. It's been a tremendous tool. So thanks for letting me sharing. Thanks for letting me come on and sharing this time with you, Wendy. I mean, I really appreciate everything you do for your friends, for your clients, and just how much you pour into other people's lives. So this has been a great time. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And I will see you sometime soon, hopefully.
All right. Sounds good. See ya.
Bye.